So Kamala Harris has now officially given her closing argument speech. This is, kind of the speech that caps off and epitomizes a candidate's political positions. Donald Trump gave his at the Madison Square Garden event that was essentially a Klan rally over there. Let's see what Kamala Harris is bringing to the table in these closing remarks. Let's take a look.
Good evening, America! Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy lives.
Okay, I needed to make sure the low buzzing sound wasn't like something in my apartment. COS Crane.
Thank you, everyone. So listen, 1 week from today, you will have the chance to make a decision that directly impacts your life, the life of your family, and the future of this country we love.
God, I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. Please, please, please let her win.
And it will probably be the most important vote you ever cast. And this election is more than just a choice.
I really wish it wasn't the most important vote, though. I wish you were running a campaign that didn't have it on such a knife's edge. I really wish that's not where we were as a country.
Between two parties and two different candidates. It is a choice about whether we have a country rooted in freedom for every American or ruled by chaos and division. Many of you watching have probably already cast your ballots. But I know many others are still considering who to vote for, or whether you'll vote at all. So tonight, I will speak to everyone about the choice and the stakes in this election. Look, we know.
I think I might early vote tomorrow. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see what I can actually do.
Who Donald Trump is. He is the person who stood at this very spot nearly 4 years ago and sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol to overturn the will of the people in a free and fair election.
This actually sends a pretty strong message, like holding her closing arguments here to directly contrast with Donald Trump. This is effective.
An election that he knew he lost. Americans died as a result of that attack. 140 law enforcement officers were injured because of that attack. And while Donald Trump sat in the White House.
What's that whistle/siren sound? I mean, clearly an emergency vehicle in the background somewhere.
Watching as the violence unfolded on television, he was told by his staff that the mob wanted to kill his own vice president. And Donald Trump responded with 2 words: so what? America, that's who Donald Trump is. And that's who is asking you to give him another 4 years in the Oval Office. Not to focus on your problems, but to focus on his. And Donald Trump has told us his priorities for a second term. He has an enemies list of people he intends to prosecute. He says that one of his highest priorities is to set free the violent extremists who insulted those law enforcement officers on January 6th. Donald Trump intends to use the United States military against American citizens who simply disagree with him. People he calls, quote, the enemy from within. America, this is not a candidate for president who is thinking about how to make your life better. This is someone who is unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and out for unchecked power.
So far, like, obviously I agree with everything that she's saying at the moment. The main thing is, and I'm guessing she's gonna get to more, like, we're only 4 minutes in, like, it's probably gonna be, like, a bit more than what we're seeing here. But I would really love for her to get to the part of the speech. Maybe she'll end on this note of, like, here's what I'll do. Because I want her to better define herself for voters that are considering voting for, you know, the left, for a liberal candidate, you know?
Donald Trump has spent a decade trying to keep the American people divided and afraid of each other. That is who he is. But America, I am here tonight to say that is not who we are. That is not who we are. That is not who we are. You see, what Donald Trump has never understood is that e pluribus unum, out of many, one, isn't just a phrase on a dollar bill. It is a living truth about the heart of our nation. Our democracy doesn't require us to agree on everything. In fact, we like good arguments from time to time. Just think of your own family, right? It's not the American way to not have disagreements. We don't shy away from robust debate. In fact, we like a good debate, don't we? We like a good debate. And the fact that someone disagrees with us does not make them the enemy within. That's right. They are family, neighbors, classmates, co-workers. They are fellow Americans. And as Americans, we rise and fall together. America, for too long, we have been consumed with too much division, chaos, and mutual distrust. And it can be easy then to forget a simple truth. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. It is time to stop pointing fingers. We have to stop pointing fingers and start locking arms. It is time to turn the page on the drama and the conflict, the fear and division. It is time for a new generation of leadership in America. And I am ready to offer that leadership as the next President of the United States of America. Now look, let me say, I recognize this has not been a typical campaign. Even though I've had the honor of serving as your vice president for the last 4 years, I know that many of you are still getting to know who I am. Well, let me tell you, I am someone who has spent most of my career outside of Washington, D.C., so I know that not all the good ideas come from here. I am not afraid of tough fights against bad actors and powerful interests, because for decades, as a prosecutor and a top law enforcement officer of our biggest state, I won fight.
I am a bit upset at the moment that, like, I'm not hearing anything that I necessarily disagree with, but I feel like an awful lot of this is posturing and not so much any kind of substance whatsoever.
Against big banks that ripped off homeowners, against...
And again, this isn't like a substance speech, but this is like a, giving voters who have been checked out kind of the last hurrah, this is who I am. And I understand, I'm not Donald Trump, he's sowing division, I'm the unity candidate. I'm not afraid to go up against the big guy. I've been used to being like, in fights out, my entire life. Like, I'm not afraid of disagreement. This is fine so far, but like, if I'm an undecided voter, I'm sitting here like, but what are you gonna do for me? What are you gonna do for people like me? What are you gonna do for my family?
For-profit colleges that scammed veterans and students, against predators who...
Yeah, the new generation of leadership line is good. Like, it helps to be like, okay, this is a break from Biden, but it's not... If I'm a voter or a potential voter and I haven't committed yet, this isn't the speech that's winning me over at the moment. We'll see.
Abused women and children and cartels that trafficked in guns, drugs, and human beings. And I did this work because for as long as I can remember, I have always had an instinct to protect. There's something about people being treated unfairly or overlooked that frankly just gets to me. I don't like it. It's what my mother instilled in me, a drive to hold accountable those who use their wealth or power to take advantage of other people. The drive to protect hardworking Americans who aren't always seen or heard and deserve a voice. And I will tell you that is the kind of president I will be. And look, I'll be honest with you, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. But here's what I promise you. I will always listen to you, even if you don't vote for me. I will always tell you the truth, even if it is difficult to hear. I will work every day to build consensus and reach compromise to get things done. And if you give me the chance to fight on your behalf, there is nothing in the world that will stand in my way. So look, in less than 90 days, either Donald Trump or I will be in the Oval Office.
God.
Okay? On day one, and on day one, if elected, Donald Trump would walk into that office with an enemies list. When elected, I will walk in with a to-do list full of priorities of what I will get done for the American people.
Okay.
And I will work with everyone,
Real men.
Democrats, Republicans, and independents, to help Americans who are working hard and still struggling to get ahead.
Let's get to the meat of it.
I have been honored to serve as Joe Biden's vice president.
Give us some meat and potatoes. Let's go.
But I will bring my own experiences and ideas to the Oval Office.
I'm excited.
My presidency will be different because the challenges we face are different.
Okay.
Our top priority as a nation 4 years ago was to end the pandemic and rescue the economy.
Okay, yep.
Now,
we're aware.
Our biggest challenge is to lower costs, costs that were rising even before the pandemic and that are still too high. I get it. I still remember our mother sitting at that yellow Formica table, late at night, cup of tea in hand, a pile of bills in front of her, trying to make it all work. And I've heard from so many of you who are facing even greater financial pressures. Donald Trump's answer to you is the same as it was the last time. Another $1 trillion in tax cuts for billionaires and big corporations.
Good attack.
And this time, he will pay for it with a 20% national sales tax on everything you buy that is imported. Think about it. Clothes, food, toys, cell phones. A Trump sales tax that would cost the average family nearly $4,000 more a year. And on top of that, you will pay even more if Donald Trump finally gets his way and repeals the Affordable Care Act.
Why does she have to talk like this? What, clearly? Why does she have to say things with enunciation? Unlike her opponent, who meal-mouths his way through everything.
Which would throw millions of Americans off their health insurance and take us back to when insurance companies had the power to deny people with pre-existing conditions. Well, we are not going back. We are not going back.
Oh, look, okay, she brought it back. I was actually not expecting her to bring back this line. It seems like that line was really popular with her base, and I've been kind of confused as to why I haven't heard more of it being employed, but like, this is good. This is a good callback. I still want to know what's on that to-do list, though.
We are not going back, because we also know Donald Trump would deliver tax cuts to his billionaire donors. I will deliver tax cuts to working people and the middle class.
Okay.
I will make sure you have a chance not just to get by, but to get ahead. Because I believe in honoring the dignity of work. I will enact the first ever federal ban on price gouging on groceries.
Hell, okay, this is good. Now we're getting to it. We're getting to the meat and potatoes. So far we have tax cuts for the working class and for the middle class. Good. End price gouging. Let's go.
Cap the price of insulin and limit out-of-pocket prescription costs for all Americans.
Let's go. Expand that Biden program.
I will fight to make sure that hardworking Americans can actually afford a place to live.
Okay. Real talk. Real talk. This is good. This is good. Like, you know who needs help affording places to live? Poor rural working class folks who might vote for Trump. Like, that unironically helps Republicans. You know who benefits from capping the cost of insulin? A lot of Republicans. Like, a lot of people benefit from this across the aisle. These are excellent points to focus on.
Never forget how our mother saved up and how excited she was when she...
It helps working class folks, which is great, but it also is serving her campaign strategy, which, that's a win-win as far as I'm concerned.
We could finally afford to buy our first home. I remember how excited she was. And I know that owning a home is not only a measure of financial security, it's about the pride of your hard work. And as president, I will fight to help first-time home buyers with your down payment, take on the companies that are jacking up rents, and build millions of new homes. For years,
Good
We
stuff.
have heard excuses about why America can't build enough housing. Enough with the excuses. I'm going to cut the red tape and work with the private sector and local governments to speed up building and get it done. And the cost of housing isn't the only financial pressure on middle-class families. I have met...
Frankly, statistically, presidents keep like something like 65 to 70% of their campaign promises. If she even does 60% or even 50% of what she's promising here, like that's going to be pretty good. And yeah, I know private sector partnerships suck, but you know, unfortunately, it plays well with liberals and neoliberals and conservatives. It's one of those things where, like, as a socialist, I'm like, gross. But I understand it's rhetorically effective for her audience.
So many young people who have a natural desire to parent their children well, but not always the resources to do it. So I'll fight for a child tax credit to save them some money, which will also lift American children out of poverty.
Can we like please for like just codify that into law that doesn't need to expire? Like let's get the child tax credit permanent. Let's make that permanent. It's unconscionable that it was allowed to expire.
I'll work to lower the cost of childcare, which is out of reach for too many working families today. And for too many people in the sandwich generation who are raising young children and taking care of a parent, juggling all of it is extremely difficult. You know, I took care of my mother when she got sick, cooking food that she had a taste for, finding clothes that would not irritate her skin, and understand, as I do, that caregiving is about dignity. It is about dignity.
And honestly, this particular part of her platform is going to be incredibly effective because the boomer generation is going into retirement homes at the moment. And if they can get taken care of at home and not have to like navigate the incredible headache of having to move to a care home that can put them in the poorhouse, or like if they can just stay at home, that is a game changer. That is a tangible thing that will affect every single elderly person in America, every single young person who has to care for an elderly person in America. Like this would be one of the biggest helps to like working people and like the elderly that has passed since Social Security. And I'm not exaggerating. That like since Social Security and Medicaid, like this is like the third pillar. Boomers who fucked over their children and grandchildren. Well, Mr. Miyagi, you know what? You know what would be even worse? You know what would be even worse? Just throwing them out onto the street to die. Do you want to see a bunch of elderly people like dying on the street? I don't. I want them to have the health care they need. And you know what? I want those policies to remain in place when I get old. I would very much like that. So, you know, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth out of spite.
And currently, if you need home care and you don't have some money to hire someone, you and your family need to deplete your savings to qualify for help.
Also, not all boomers are evil.
Right.
True.
So we're going to change the approach and allow Medicare to cover the cost of home care.
This is a genuinely huge game changer.
So seniors can get the help and care they need in their own homes.
You know, honestly, I wouldn't describe Kamala Harris, as far as I know, as a neoliberal. I would describe Joe Biden as a neoliberal. I'd describe Kamala Harris as a liberal. I think she is a uniform improvement over Biden in basically every conceivable way.
Now, Donald Trump has a different approach.
And granted, some of those bars are very low to clear, but she clears them, you know?
He tried to cut Medicare and Social Security every year he was president. Look, I believe that when people have worked hard their entire life,
huge
they
deal for people with
deserve
disabilities
to
as well.
retire
True.
with the
True.
benefits they have earned. And I believe in
Building a bunch of shiny new homes is very neoliberal. No, it's not. People need housing.
the fundamental freedom of Americans to make decisions about their own bodies and not have their government tell them what to do. I will fight to restore what...
But shiny and new is a capitalist fetish? Dude, the population gets bigger and bigger. Like, what do you... I'm sorry, you need to build new houses. People gotta live somewhere, and if they don't have houses to live in, they live on the street. Build more housing.
Donald Trump and his hand-selected Supreme Court justices took away from the women of America. That today, 1 in 3 women in America, think about it, 1 in 3 women in America lives in a state with a Trump abortion ban. Many with no...
This is, okay, like, I'm not gonna lie, she kinda had me down in the first half, but now we're really cooking here. She's really doing a good job.
Exceptions even for rape and incest. The idea that a woman who survives a crime of a violation to her body should not have the authority to make a decision about what happens to her body next, that is immoral. That is immoral. And Trump's not done. He would ban abortion nationwide, restrict access to birth control and put IVF treatments at risk, and force states to monitor women's pregnancies. Just Google Project 2025 and read the plans for yourself. And look, I think we all know one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to simply agree the government should not be telling her what to do with her body. Not the government. And when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom nationwide, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. Proudly.
Nice, let's do it.
And look, on another subject, politicians have got to stop treating immigration as an issue to scare up votes in an election. And instead treat it as the serious challenge that it is that we must finally come together to solve. I will work with Democrats and Republicans to sign into law the border security bill that Donald Trump killed. When I was Attorney General of a border state, I saw the chaos and violence caused by transnational criminal organizations that I took on. And when I am president, we will quickly remove those who arrive here unlawfully, prosecute the cartels, and give Border Patrol the support they so desperately need. At the same time, we must acknowledge we are a nation of immigrants. And I will work with Congress to pass immigration reform, including...
So, Lanzetta, I'm not exactly sure how Medicare would be expanded. I don't think it would be through executive order. I think it would probably be through the budget reconciliation. I think that's how it would work. Though it could also, that also depends on, like, if Democrats control the Senate and the House. Like, all of that is still kind of in flux, right? And I think that's kind of the route they would go through. They might also consider getting rid of the filibuster to pass legislation. Yeah. And also, I think once Medicare is expanded in that way, it would just cover it uniformly across the United States. I think Medicaid is on a state by state basis, but Medicare is federal. I might be wrong though. I'm not like up on the intricacies there.
Including an earned path to citizenship for hardworking immigrants like farm workers and our dreamers. As Commander-in-Chief, I will make sure America has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world. Donald
It plays well with liberals and neoliberals and the demographics she's targeting that are Republican or non-committed.
Trump, on the other hand, has shown his contempt for our nation's heroes, calls them suckers and losers.
I mean, it does allow her to contrast with Donald Trump saying heinous things about veterans.
Four-star Marine general, a, quote, lowlife. I will always honor, never denigrate, the service and sacrifice of our troops and their families, and fulfill our sacred obligation to care for them. I will strengthen, not surrender, America's global leadership. And I will stand with our friends because I know that our alliances keep American people safe and make America stronger and more secure.
Oh, overall, this is a pretty good speech so far. Like, I know she's saying some things that, like, socialists like myself aren't super big fans of, but, like, from a practical, like, electoral standpoint of, like, needing to win the presidency, I think she's saying everything she needs to so far. No major slip-ups.
Look, world leaders think that Donald Trump is an easy mark. Easy to manipulate with flattery or favor. And you can believe that autocrats like Putin and Kim Jong-un are rooting for him in this election. I will always uphold our security, advance our national interest, and ensure that the United States of America remains, as we must forever be, a champion of liberty around the world. America, we know what Donald Trump has in mind. More chaos, more division, and policies that help those at the very top and hurt everyone else. I offer a different path, and I ask for your vote. And here is my pledge to you.
Well, you know, I can eat crow on this. I did hope that, like, one of her main final appearances would result in her, like, saying something about a ceasefire in Gaza, but clearly my hopes were too high, you know? And it was never much of a hope, but, like, damn.
I pledge to seek common ground and common sense solutions to make your life better. I am not looking to score political points. I am looking to make progress. I pledge to listen to experts, to those who will be impacted by the decisions I make, and to people who disagree with me. Unlike Donald Trump, I don't believe people who disagree with me are the enemy. He wants to put them in jail. I'll give them a seat at the table. I pledge to you to approach my work with the joy and optimism that comes from making a difference in people's lives. And I pledge to be a president for all Americans. And to always put country above party and self. I love our country with all my heart. And I believe in its promise because I've lived it. I grew up as a child of the Civil Rights Movement. My parents would take me to marches in a stroller, where crowds of people of all races, faiths, and walks of life came together to fight for the ideals of freedom and opportunity. I've lived the promise of America. I saw how hard our mother worked to give her daughters the same chances this country gave her. Growing up, I was blessed to have family by blood and family by love, who instilled in me the values of community, compassion, and faith that have always defined our nation at its best. I've lived the promise of America. I've spent my life fighting for the people who have been hurt and counted out, but never stopped believing that in our country, anything is possible. I've lived the promise of America, and I see the promise of America in all of you. In all of you. I see it.
You know, honestly, this is a pretty good speech. She's ending on some fluff, but like the meat and potatoes of it in the middle was great. That's gonna resonate. That's gonna, like, if I am approaching this as someone who is, you know, an independent or an undecided or a low information voter, I hear this and I'm like, oh wow, that would be really helpful for my life. I want that, you know?
I see it in the young people who are voting for the first time, who are determined to live free from gun violence and to protect our planet and to shape the world they inherit. I see it in the women who refuse to accept a future without reproductive freedom, and the men who support them. I see it in Republicans who have never voted for a Democrat before, but have put the Constitution of the United States over party. I've seen it in Americans different in many respects, but united in our pursuit of freedom, our belief in fairness and decency, and our faith in a better future. America, I know the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. I know it. And that's why I am in this race, to fight for the people just like I always have.
Strong end. Strong end to the speech.
250 years ago, America was born when we wrested freedom from a petty tyrant. Across the generations, Americans have preserved that freedom, expanded it, and in so doing, proved to the world that a government of, by, and for the people is strong and can endure. And those who came before us, the patriots at Normandy and Selma, Seneca Falls and Stonewall, on farmlands and factory
nice gesture
floors,
to the LGBTQ community.
they
right there.
did not struggle, sacrifice, and lay down their lives only to see us cede our fundamental freedoms. They didn't do that only to see us submit to the will of another petty tyrant.
Good way to end. Good way to end.
These United States of America, we are not a vessel for the schemes of wannabe dictators. The United States of America is the greatest idea humanity ever devised. A nation big enough to encompass all our dreams, strong enough to withstand any fracture or fissure between us, and fearless enough to imagine a future of possibilities. So, America, let us reach for that future. Let us fight for this beautiful country we love. And in 7 days, we have the power, each of you has the power to turn the page and start writing the next chapter in the most extraordinary story ever told. I thank you all. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Okay, you know, my initial thought here is that speech did everything she needed it to do. That speech did everything she needed it to do. She hit the actual to-do list of things she wanted to get done, things that people who are undecided would be attracted to. She really hammered home abortion as a key issue, which is great. That is what is going to get out a lot of the vote in this election cycle. Like, it was generic, but like in the way it kind of needed to be. Because she's putting herself up in a weird position as both a return to normalcy candidate, or rather a continuation of normalcy, while simultaneously trying to be the change candidate that is going to continue improving your life, you know? It's not exactly, you know, revolutionary, but it is essentially staking out the position that I'm going to do better by you than what Biden did, which is good. And like, she didn't talk about Gaza at all. And, you know, it's not surprising that she didn't. The one thing I will say is that I do think that there is something here to be said about the fact that I think the team she's assembled for herself is gonna get something done when it comes to Gaza. Like, I do think that. I was looking into this, and here's an article from Middle East Eye from back in September, and it's pretty interesting here, right? If you take a look here at this section, the official advising Harris on her statements about Gaza is a prime example. He could find himself in line to become the next White House coordinator of the Middle East and North Africa, a position currently held by Brett McGurk. Ilan Goldberg worked on the 2013 peace process before he became Middle East advisor in Harris's vice presidential office. In August, he was named the Harris campaign's director of Jewish outreach. Ilan has Kamala's ear. He knows the Israel-Palestine file like the back of his hand, a former senior official in the Obama administration who speaks regularly with Goldberg told Middle East Eye. Like the half dozen other current and former Democratic administration officials contacted for this article, he spoke on condition of anonymity. Normally, a person like that would go to someone more in touch with domestic U.S. politics. Ilan is a foreign policy guy through and through. Harris isn't playing politics. She has Ilan there to tell the Jewish community from the view of the Middle East why a ceasefire is necessary. Born in Jerusalem but raised in a conservative Jewish family in New Jersey, the 47-year-old entered the White House as a junior advisor on Iran at the Department of Defense during the Obama administration. In 2018, Goldenberg published an article in Haaretz, which is, by the way, the left-wing newspaper in Israel, that said Israel would face a reckoning unless it agreed to a long-term ceasefire with Hamas and ended its blockade of Gaza. He argued for a reconciliation deal between Hamas and Fatah to bring the Palestinian Authority back into Gaza, without which he warned there will come a moment when basic order collapses altogether, or Israel is forced to invade and retake Gaza. And so, like, and this, by the way, pattern plays out with a lot of the other foreign policy folks that Kamala has surrounded herself with for her campaign. So I think that the people that she's brought together here, to me, indicate that she has a desire to change this status quo. And so I'm hopeful in that regard. And I think that she can be pushed into a better position. It's not great, but let me put it this way. I have some hope in this regard, strengthened and based upon certain decisions based on the people she surrounded herself with. I have zero faith that Donald Trump would improve any situation in Gaza for any Palestinians anywhere, honestly. He uses Palestinian as a slur in his speeches. I don't think he's going to improve things for Palestinians in America either. And so all of that being said, oh, and she just can't say it, at least not now. Yeah, she can't say it. She's the vice president. She can't contradict the president of the United States while she's in the middle of a campaign running to be president. So we'll see what happens after she gets into office. But like I've been saying the entire time, keep protesting her. Keep protesting her. The second she's in office, continue protesting her. You know? At her speech as she is, ascendant to the presidency, protest her. Like, do the protesting. I think she will actually be able to respond after the election is over. But we'll have to see, because the election is tense as hell. So, with that being said, what else do I think of that speech? It did everything it needed to do. It really did kind of toe a safe path. There were a couple flourishes to make nods to different minority communities. I think that she did really try to hammer home, her story. She tried to hammer home her story while also providing the meat and potatoes. I think she did a fine job at that. I don't think she did a great job at kind of weaving her story or adopting high-minded rhetoric. I do like those soaring speeches that politicians can give sometimes, but I don't necessarily think she's really prone to that. She seems more common sense in her approach to speeches. And I think overall, that common sense approach is probably going to serve her pretty well when it comes to undecided voters, or even, the demographic that her campaign has been targeting, the white non-college voters. It could very well be that if you're a white non-college voter in a conservative state or in a swing state, you see her give this speech, you don't turn out to vote. We're kind of seeing that, by the way. A lot of the early voting in swing states is indicating that a lot of, low information, white, non-college men are staying home. The early voting data is showing that women are overwhelmingly voting early. Men are not. It's very disproportionate. I don't actually have the numbers right in front of me, but I took a look at it earlier today, and yeah, it's looking good so far. So, conservative or undecided men have a real opportunity to save America right now by not voting, or by voting for Kamala Harris. We'll take either one, really. God. Vosh fucking hated that speech. Refreshing to hear a more positive take. I mean, as a socialist, obviously I want to hear her, you know, I want to hear her talk about how we're going to get democratic worker co-ops and we're going to, decommodify housing. I don't want to hear this shit about like private public partnerships. I don't want that. But I also understand that if we lose this election, we're fucked. And I also understand that the current campaign strategy that she's going with is not geared to people like me, because it's kind of banking on the fact that people like me will understand the threat we are under from Donald Trump and show up anyway. And I think that it's, yeah. I mean, like, you can see a lot of it too in how Puerto Ricans are responding to the slander of Puerto Rico from the that final Trump Madison Square Garden appearance. You're seeing a lot of conservative Puerto Ricans say that they're changing their vote or they are not going to vote at all. And like, I think there's a decent chance that this final push, this final week could like really, let me put it this way. If Kamala Harris is able to depress the turnout of the white non-college voter by another 1%, or even win over like 0.5%, while the other 0.5% just stays home, if she can make those inroads, this election is sealed up for her. Like we start seeing things like Florida going blue. Like that's like kind of where we're at, and that is an actual possibility when combined with like Puerto Rican outrage at Donald Trump kind of activating that base. So Vosh isn't just pessimistic about the election, he's also worried about the next 4 years being nothing getting done or fixed in our system. I mean, that's a possibility, but it's kind of incumbent on us. Like, no one was ever going to save us should Kamala Harris win. No one was ever going to save us. I do think that she's going to be better on a lot of things than Biden, that Biden was bad on. I think she's going to be a measurable improvement over Biden. But we have to get to work. I think I view Kamala Harris as a unique window of opportunity for the left to build power. If she wins, I view that as a unique opportunity for leftists to protest her, for leftists on a local and state level to get ready to primary politicians in the midterms. I view this as an actually golden opportunity, if we win, to get some breathing room to not worry about fascists at the gates. I do think that if Kamala Harris wins, there's no one to challenge her currently in 2028. So that gives us like a decade, almost a decade, to build political power to get shit done. It is honestly the biggest opportunity any of us have ever seen in our lifetimes to actually build up a meaningful leftist movement. Like, it is a golden opportunity for that. And it's, I can't view it as anything else than that. Like, we get to avoid fascist dictatorship America, and instead we get to build leftist power, as opposed to just like, I don't know, get eviscerated by the meat grinding camps that make the Soylent Green that Donald Trump has invested heavily into. Like something like that. We get to actually do shit. Nikki Haley will come for her. I don't think Nikki Haley is a real threat, if I'm going to be completely honest. I don't think Nikki Haley is a real threat in the Republican sector. I genuinely don't. Like, there is no cult of personality leader that can unite the conservative movement at this point in time. Maybe someone will emerge, but currently there is absolutely no successor to Donald Trump. Not at all. Like, Ron DeSantis, that guy is a Rizless ghoul in a human suit. He literally, like, the more people saw of him, the less they liked him. Like Ted Cruz, dude's on the verge of losing his Senate seat. Like, Donald Trump is the cult leader. And also, I don't think he's going to, like, relinquish power after he loses in the Republican Party. I think he's going to try and hold on to that for as long as he can feasibly hold on to it, which is going to fuck over Republican politicians. Like, he's not going to be able to run for president, but he's going to try and act like he's going to in 2028. Like, his family owns the RNC. Like, they're cooked. They're absolutely cooked. They're out of money. They've been funneling all of the Republican money into, like, this campaign. They're dead broke after this. And on top of being dead broke, they're like all of their additional money, whatever else is being spent here, is being funneled into Donald Trump's accounts for litigation. That comedian loser lost a lot of votes for Trump. Let's be clear, it wasn't just that comedian loser. It was the Trump campaign. They approved what he said. That his set was vetted by the Trump campaign. They approved it because, well, they thought their audience would love it. Because their audience is white supremacists and not Puerto Ricans. What will his daughter-in-law do with the RNC after he kicks the bucket? I have no fucking idea. I think she's probably going to get out of Dodge. So, all I'm saying is that if we win, I think we have an incredible opportunity to build power. I would love to, you know, maybe I'll, like, noodle on this when I take my break from streaming after the election. Maybe I'll noodle on this for a little while on how we can better organize locally, because I think if Kamala Harris wins, we're in a totally different ballgame. We're in building political power mode, and I want to be able to effectively help that along as best I can. Anyone telling you different is just, you know, they're dooming. They're dooming. They need to buck up, buckos. Okay? That's another thing. Republicans are broke. The Senate Republicans have money, but that's because of Mitch McConnell, and he's leaving leadership at the end of the year, and an idiot with no funding capabilities will likely take over the Republican minority leader. Yeah, like they got nothing. They're tanked out. This was their last gasp. If they lose, they're fucked. And that's, by the way, if they lose in a close election, they're still fucked. If they get blown up in this election, if they get blown out electorally, they have nothing left. I like, if they get blown out in this election, I think the Republican Party shatters. There's nothing holding it together. So that's my take on this speech. I think overall it did exactly what Kamala Harris needed it to do, and it could be like setting the stage for a really great period of leftist organizing. And I hope we get to see that period. But I'm still nervous as hell. There we go. Please go vote. Vote early. Make sure that ballot gets counted, okay?